Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 95. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at Rethink Coaching. And as always, I want to thank you for sharing your time with me. Time truly is our greatest asset. And the fact that you're willing to share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. So thanks so much for being here. And today I want to talk to you about something that came up and came to mind for me while I was on a morning walk. I think I've shared with most of you, I've been doing a lot of indoor exercise lately with hot yoga. And this morning I decided to go for a walk. And here in Santa Fe, we're very hilly, very sunny. And partway through my walk, I saw my shadow, which is the first time I've seen my shadow in a long time. And it prompted me to think about the one thing that could be driving, could be holding you back, could be preventing you from the level of success that you desire, is that of your shadow. So here's what I want you to think about. Just because I haven't seen my shadow in a while, so I exercise indoors, there's really in a darker room, there's no visible shadow, but the shadow is always there. And it was a great reminder to me today to pay attention to that, because even with all of the work that I've done, all of the certifications I have, all of the coaching and coaches and being coached that I have had, the shadow is still there. And it is one of the pieces that if we unlock for you can change everything. It could be the thing that has been preventing you from a breakthrough in a really, really long time. So today we're going to talk about shadow work. And I want you to have a clear understanding of what it really means or what it means to me. So when I'm talking about shadow work, I'm talking about the inner work that most of you, most entrepreneurs, leaders will avoid. Yet it's absolutely necessary and needed. It is one of the things we avoid. However, when you face it, it can change everything. It's really about getting honest with yourself about the parts that we've maybe pushed down or tried to stifle a bit. And it might be something like fear of failure. It could be imposter syndrome. It could be a need for control. It can be just your basic beliefs around money and success. So there can be a lot of things that we've been suppressing. The thing to remember is the hidden patterns don't just hang out in one part of your life. So they don't just hang out in your personal life. If you're feeling that in your personal life, I promise you, they're showing up in your business decisions and how you lead, how you price, how you value yourself as an entrepreneur, what you charge to your clients. And really the shadow work's about shining a light on the hidden drivers, those things that we talked about, so they stop running the show from the background. Once you do that, you really will unlock true confidence, alignment, and momentum. So just know that even though you may not have paid attention to it, we all have a shadow. We all have a shadow that follows us around all of the time, whether we can see it or not. It's there. It truly is a reflection of the things or the parts of yourself that you really don't desire to be. Yet it is operating in the background. So how does this impact your business? You know, like I said, this morning I was on a walk and it was the first time I was made consciously aware of my shadow. Now, this was a shadow from the light, yet for me, it was an awareness of the shadow that all of us have follows us around all of the time. It doesn't just stay at home and wait for you to come back home and join you. It's with you throughout the day, whether that's interactions with family, friends, peers, clients, whatever it is, it shows up. It will show up in your leadership. It will show up on your team dynamics. If you run a team, it shows up in your tolerance towards risk. It shows up in so many places. It truly shapes your belief around money, success, and worthiness. And think about that as an entrepreneur. We're here launching a business that we truly do believe in, yet this voice in the background or the shadow in the background might be causing us to have an impact of what those beliefs really are around money, success, and worthiness. So some examples of this might be undercharging for your services. because you don't believe you're really good enough. I have seen this happen so many times in my coaching practice with clients who are entrepreneurs, and they've had the same pricing for a decade. And I always question them, have your skills not changed over the last 10 years? And a lot of times they respond with, it has, yet I feel like that's what I'm worth. And that to me is a really great example of how the shadow can impact your belief around your worthiness. Shadow work may also cause you to procrastinate doing something or to be fearful of doing something because the shadow is saying, but what if you get rejected? Like, let's just play it safe. It could reject you. And another part of it can be if you run a team, I've also seen this happen quite a bit, is that you're constantly running off talent because on an unconscious level, there's a lot of sabotage going on to connection, or you resist being vulnerable with those that you lead. So shadow does impact your business as much as it impacts your personal life. It is there in every element of it, and we just need to become aware of it. So what are some signs that you're being run by your shadow? The easiest thing to do is to notice when you're triggered by someone or something, meaning somebody says something and it's their stuff that they're talking about, but it lights you up. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you feel less than. It makes you angry. It can cause a lot of different emotions. But what happens is we're projecting our shadow onto them. And so if I am someone who feels very insecure about my worthiness and my ability of success, or maybe I've taken a change in careers and it's different than what it used to be, the shadow that I'm be projecting onto somebody else when they're talking about their success or some amazing projects that they're working on may trigger me to feel unworthy, because that's the shadow, right? That's the shadow telling you you're not worthy, you're not good enough. So pay attention when you're triggered. I always say a trigger is your biggest gift because it lets you know something is not at ease within you. It has nothing to do with the other person. Absolutely nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with you and the shadow. Because I could be consciously saying, hey, I think I'm great. I know that this new business I'm doing might take a little bit to launch. And then somebody comes along and shares about their success or about a really cool thing that they're working on, and I get triggered. Well, it doesn't make sense. Consciously, I feel this, they're doing this, but what's really causing the trigger is what's happening in the background. And it can be from childhood. It can be from things that have happened in your past that make you believe, your shadow believe in your level of worthiness around money, beliefs, all of that. So if you're experiencing a trigger, say hello to your shadow. That's really what's happening. I always say this, how do you know it's a trigger? Your reaction is disproportionate to the event. So if somebody innocently says something and I get enraged, that's a clue that you have a trigger around that. Another clue can be you have a very people-pleasing or perfectionism personality, because your shadow is running the show again, telling you you're not good enough and you need to be better than everybody else. So that can be a red flag. A red flag can be avoiding feedback and failure. It's a big one. And feeling like you're constantly pushing through life, like nothing's easy. I've got to constantly be forging my way through. Those are trigger signs that you may be having some unwelcome visit from your shadow. So number 4, I want to talk about with you is, where did this begin? Where did these thoughts that are living in the shadow begin? And a lot of times, we have to trace it back to its origin. And that's some of the work that we do with our clients to figure this out. Yet many of the traits that we have in our shadow are a direct result of survival mechanisms from our childhood. The kid who stayed quiet to avoid conflict with the adults, who avoids confrontation in business, same thing, right? Stays quiet to avoid confrontation with adults is avoiding confrontation in their business. I will share with you, for me, one of my shadows was inability to talk to or share or go to people for advice. Now you can imagine it was a real challenge for me to hire a coach. And when I really sat with this and wondered why, I go back to my childhood when I realized that I was a gay kid being raised in a very conservative Catholic family by amazing parents, yet I couldn't go to them to talk about the issues that I was having. So one of my survival techniques has always been to go internal and work on solving my problems by myself, figuring it out on my own, not sharing with anybody. And so as I was progressing as an adult and in my first career with Marriott hotels, and I learned it really showed up a lot there because I would have an issue, but I didn't want to go to my manager and talk about it. I defaulted to my natural behavior, to my shadow, and would go internal and work on figuring it out myself. Now, some of that's not a bad thing. Like I became a really good strategic thinker. I became very independent because of that. However, that piece of the shadow really prevented me from hearing other options or learning from other people. So we have to trace, where did it come from? That's where it came from for me. I'm sure if I would have gone to my parents to have a conversation, we would have figured it out. But that was a story I made up and I lived into. And that is constantly living in my shadow, even after all of the work that I have done. It's still there. Now I manage it differently and I clearly have a coach and I'm a coach. So it's kind of is funny to think that that's one of my triggers, yet it is. One of the other things, like great example of this, which might be for you, I know for me, I was taught to be very modest as a kid, not to brag. Like it was really inappropriate to brag or talk about your success. And that means right now there's a bit of a struggle to market or to speak with authority. Well, there was. I've worked through that. But honestly, these things that are living in the shadow are originated most likely in your childhood. That's where a lot of things happen between the age of 0 and 7. That's really what we believe in the NLP world, the neuro-linguistic programming world, that a lot of this stuff has happened in those formative years of 0 to 7. I know we think that we're not that impacted, but you really are. So 0 to 7 is where a lot happens. So most likely it's going to have happened earlier, and that has been living in your shadow since it happened. So for me, when I realized I couldn't talk to anybody, that part of my shadow developed and it has stayed with me my entire life. So what are some things you can do if you need to try to figure out where is the origin? Where is this coming from? I would say turn to journaling, do a little bit of work or hire a coach, right? You can go either way. Hire a coach, someone like myself who is trained in this that can help you figure that shadow out so we can address it. But you might just right now want to start with something as simple as journaling. And you might want to have a journal prompt that ask yourself this simple question. When was the first time I felt I had to hide this part of myself? And I think that's a really powerful question as a journal prompt. When was the first time I felt I had to hide this part of myself? It's a great journal prompt to get you to start thinking about what's the origin. What's my earliest recollection of that feeling that I had to hide this part of me? Now, reclaiming the shadow as power, this is where the magic happens. And I'm so fortunate that I discovered this early on and I was able to get beyond a lot of the shadow in my life. I originally did it through therapy and then moved on to a lot of NLP work around this. And you can turn the shadow into power, which is really liberating to know. Just know that shadow work's not about fixing yourself, right? It's about reclaiming your wholeness, right? There's this shadow over here that's detached from me, even though it's a reflection and it goes both ways. I can turn that around and reclaim it. So just like I said, that little piece of me about going inward when a problem comes up, that always lives in my shadow. But right now I know when I'm doing that, I can recognize it quicker. And I've got a couple of coaches that I work with that I know I can turn to. I've got a great spouse. I've got great family, and I can reclaim that wholeness. So when you own the shadow, it stops owning you. And part of owning the shadow is figuring out the origin, what we talked about in the previous step, spending some time figuring out where it came from. Because once you own it, your shadow becomes much more integrated with you. You become more confident and creative because you've overcome or dispelled those beliefs that your shadow is holding onto. So it's really powerful that you know that you can reclaim the shadow as your power. We just have to get to the root cause and figure out what's going on. So, if you're someone, and a lot of us have this tendency, and this is part of a shadow for a lot of people, control freak, like to be in control of everything. And it really bothers us when we're not in control. The cool thing is once we heal that or we work through that, right, and we create a different story, it can actually become a strong vision, setting, and structure for you. Control. It can turn from what it is now into allowing you the space for a better vision, for setting and structure of your business. If you're someone who, is a bit of a people pleaser, right? We said that could be one of the triggers. You can turn that around. You can acknowledge that part of your shadow, work through that through the origin, and realize that you can become a really empathetic leader, right? Versus a people pleaser. Like, I don't have to take that on and try to please them. I can take that energy that I was doing that with and turn it into being empathetic and working with people to help them through it versus me owning it and becoming that people pleaser. So there are some tools that you can work with the shadow. So remember, it's always there. So why wouldn't we want to start working with it? And to, it's not about fixing it, but it's really about reframing, restructuring so that it is empowering versus disempowering. So some of the tools, number one, we talked about journal. I love the journal prompt. What part of myself do I hide from others? I think that is great. This may sound a little strange for some of you, but mirror work, like saying what you're afraid of out loud to yourself, really looking at yourself and having a conversation, say it out loud to yourself first. The other thing that you could do is some inner visualization. So meet the version of you who created that story. So for me, I'd go back to the kid who realized they couldn't talk about this with anybody because back in the time when I figured this out, it wasn't okay to do that in most circumstances. If I go back to that place and realize that's when I made that decision, but that decision really wasn't the only choice I had, I have to do some work on that, figure that piece out. It's that inner child or that programming part that we spend some time with. Shadow dialogue. This is kind of cool. It's always with you, right? I know today on the walk, because of the work I do, I was intrigued by the shadow, and you can have a conversation, voice from the voice of the shadow, and let it speak to you. That's where all the stuff is brewing up, that's bubbling in the background, that if you let it come forward and you just let it come out, you can learn from it. So I always say it's, I think it's shadow work a lot, like when we're suppressing or holding back an emotion or a feeling. I say, and you've heard me say this before, it's like holding a beach ball underwater. I think we've all tried to do it. And eventually the ball comes out and comes flying out from underneath the water. And for whatever reason, it hits you in the face. That's what we're looking to do with this dialogue with the shadow. Just kind of learn from it. What's the voice? What's it holding onto? What are the stories it's carrying around that it's projecting onto you 24/7 in all parts of your life? Lastly, obviously, work with a coach, whether it's me or another coach. If you're suffering from a few of the things that we've talked about, find a coach that is certified in NLP or even certified in shadow work that can help you get through this. You can also hire a therapist. Whatever your flavor is, just go seek some support. Because until you do, shadow's driving the show. We like to think we are because we live on a conscious playing field, right? But really what's happening is that shadow is behind you, next to you, in front of you. It just depends on where it is at the time. And it's really driving the bus or driving your business. Shadow work is really important, guys, for productivity and peace. I know when I first started down this journey in the NLP world and releasing a lot of what was held in the shadow through some incredible work that I was trained to do. So first it was done to me, then I was trained how to do it to others, and now it's part of our practice, is what we call mental emotional release, where we help you release the things that are holding you back in the shadow or in your past that are driving forward into your now that you're not even aware that are doing it. So this is what I love. I know because of the work I've done on myself and the work that I've been able to do with others that it has provided a space of productivity and peace. Because think about it, that shadow is yakking, yak, constantly talking, like we talked before about our unconscious minds constantly running 60,000 thoughts a day. That shadow is constantly there talking to you. You may not realize it's talking to you, but your actions are responding to the conversation from the shadow. So you realize that you can get out of that silent battle with yourself. That moment where you've got these goals, you've got a great plan. This is going to be the year that I'm going to hit goal. And I'm so confident about it. And then we get derailed. That's having a silent battle with yourself because that other piece is holding you back. Yes, you've got all the skills, all of the strategies, the best plans in place. But until we release the silent battle with our shadow, it's going to show up and it's going to make an impact on your overall success. The other thing that it does when you really work on it is it helps conserve your energy and to be used in a very productive way. It helps you eliminate overthinking because first you think on a conscious level and then your unconscious or your shadow starts another conversation with you. So it will help eliminate overthinking. It will help eliminate perfectionism. It will help eliminate self-doubt. Productivity becomes purpose-driven. I love that. And not pressure-driven. There's a difference. So productivity will switch to being purpose-driven versus pressure-driven. Happiness becomes self-sourced. You no longer are depending on something to happen to experience happiness. So think about that. You get control of your energy, right? You get to place it where you want. You get to release the overthinking. I know we've all been guilty of that. And part of that's because you're having two conversations when you think you're only having one. Shadow's talking to you. Conscious mind is talking to you. Who's going to win? The shadow. Perfectionism. To be able to give that up and just to do something. And if you fail, you fail. If you succeed, great. Whatever way you're going to learn, either way, you'll learn from both of them. And to eliminate that self-doubt. That's probably the best gift it can be. So just know shadow's not your enemy. It's really not. It's just the blueprint for you to look at to work on healing, growth, and authenticity for yourself. If you want to thrive in business and life, we have to integrate that shadow into what works and what we can unlock for you. So I thought about it like today on the walk. Sometimes the shadow was next to me. Sometimes it was behind me. Sometimes it was in front of me. Sometimes it was on me. It was integrated in. And that's exactly what I want you to think about this. We can take that shadow that's there right now and we can alter it and we can make it be power versus disempowering for you. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's not industry specific. This is human being specific. So just real quick, couple things to keep in mind in summary is just know what the shadow is, right? Why it is so important. It's the definition we started the podcast with. Learn and listen how it impacts your life and your business because it's impacting everything. So just get clear on that. Be aware of the signs that you're being run by your shadow. Those are those triggers. There's those moments where your reaction is much greater than it should be given the circumstances. So the reaction is out of proportion to what has happened. So pay attention to the triggers. We really need to, this is the most important. The fourth thing here is where did this begin? Really figure out the origin of it, because once we figure that out, we can reframe that story, because the story you made as 6-year-old Tony about not being able to talk to anybody is not true. So you can reframe that and change that part of the shadow and make it more empowering. I think it's probably why I became a coach, because I turned that piece around to want to be the person that people could come to and talk to. And then for me to have coaches for now the last almost 20 years has been very empowering because I changed that story. So I knew that was the origin. You can reclaim the shadow as power. Just don't ever forget that. And then start working on some of those tools. You might start on your own before you get to a coach, but I would highly recommend you do it with a coach. Because again, if we go internal, we're only getting one perspective or one viewpoint and we won't see our blind spots, where a coach can really help you with it. And again, it really should be a coach who's certified in NLP. Like for myself and my coaches, we are all master practitioners of NLP. Some of us are trainers training of NLP. We get it at a really high level and we can help expedite the work with the shadow. And then just know that once you do this, your productivity and peace are going to go up. It's a guarantee. I promise you, your productivity and your peace will go up. So team, like this and anything else, if you ever need some additional help on this is a heavy, big topic. And some of you might be like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm just going to ignore it. Just know that you're holding the beach ball underwater. It's going to pop out and hit you in the face. Now, yes, you can grab it again and put it back under, but wouldn't it just be much more pleasant to deal with it and be in a place of productivity and peace? So if you're struggling with this, need some additional help, just reach out to me, Tony@rethinkcoaching.com. Happy to schedule a free 1-hour strategy session with you where we can start to unlock some of this. It really doesn't take that long. You can also find me on all the social media platforms. You can go to our website, rethinkcoaching.com, and there's a pop-up menu that you can click and put your information in that comes directly to me that allows us to schedule the 1 hour free strategy session. So however you choose to get a hold of me, just do it. I'm here to help you out. I cannot stress enough that you spend some time with this. We all have a shadow that follows us around all the time. You get to choose what you allow to stay in your shadow. You get to choose if you want to eliminate some of the negative that has been impacting your overall success and happiness. It's really up to you. And that's what I love the most. You get to decide. All right, team, go make it an amazing week. Pay attention to the shadows. We'll talk to you later. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.